All right, everyone. Hope you all are having a decent time while I'm away, learning all this math and completing all these assignments. So, what we're going to do is we're going to focus today on section 8.1. All right, and what we're specifically focusing on is we're looking at performing a two sample test. All right, up until this point, we've only been performing one sample test. Now we're going to look at performing a two sample test. Okay, so here are the most valuable notes. If you need to, go ahead and press pause. Make sure that they're in your notebooks. These are, of course, the key formulas we are going to be using, specifically in step 5 and step 4, because as you see, we'll need to calculate that value sometimes. Okay, and here are the steps. They should be looking pretty familiar. We're just going to walk right down and complete this two sample z-test. All right, so if you need to press pause, go ahead and do so. I'll wait a few seconds and then we'll move on with the examples. All right, so let's dig into the examples here, if my pen will let me move forward. There we go. All right, so problem number 1. A credit card watchdog group claims that there is a difference in the mean credit card debts of households in New York City and Texas. The results of a random survey of 250 households from each state are shown at the left. By the way, that's right over here. Okay. The two samples are independent. Do the results support the group's claim? Use alpha equals 0.05. All right, so we have a 5% level of significance going into this. So let's just go ahead and start walking right down the steps. So step 1, we need to create our null hypothesis. Everybody's favorite step at this point, right? And we also need to create our alternative hypothesis. All right? Well, it's pretty simple what the claim is. The claim is that there is a difference. All right, so that generally implies that the null hypothesis is that there is no difference. Okay? There is no difference, which would mean that they are equal. All right, so the credit card debts of households in New York and Texas are generally thought to be equal. Okay? The alternative hypothesis would be that they are not equal. And that, in fact, is our claim. Okay? Now, you should notice that, not equals, we are doing a two-tailed test. Okay? So make sure you take note of that whenever you start to dig into some of these problems here. All right, step 2, find the level of significance. Of course, alpha is 0.05. Now you need to grab your normal distribution table. That should be table 4 from your book. Okay, I'm going to write that down. And if you had the specific tables that I printed out, remember it gave you specific criteria for two tailed tests. And this is exactly what we're looking for, because remember 1 minus 0.05 equals 0.95. So there are our cutoff values. Negative 1.96 and 1.96. Okay, now do note whenever you're using this table, you do not have to worry about dividing alpha by 2. Okay, if you're going to use the older table that's in your book, you do have to divide alpha by 2 in order to get the correct answer. Okay, just be aware of that. Also, be aware that this is actually shaded backwards. Okay, right there are our values, and there is our shaded rejection regions. Okay, so let's go ahead and continue here. We need to move on. Now we're going to calculate the standard deviation of x bar sub 1 minus x bar sub 2. All right, and that was this formula piece back here, because we need a standard deviation to go in the denominator. So we're basically going to be calculating this guy right here. Okay, so let's go ahead and plug him in. I'm going to go ahead and write out the formula just so you guys get used to doing that as well. I want you to do that so that way you start to at least become more familiar with it, if not possibly memorize it. All right, so standard deviation of the first statistic squared divided by the number of the sample. All right, and then standard deviation of the second sample squared divided by the number of the second sample squared. All right, so if we go ahead and plug that in, our standard deviation is going to be $1,045.70. I'm going to just go ahead and cut off the 0 on the 70 cents, square that, divide that by 250. Okay? And I'm going to add that to our $1,361.95. And we are going to divide that by 250 again. Okay? And once you plug all that information into the calculator, you should get a value approximately equal to 108.593. Okay, so that's going to be our standard deviation of the two samples combined. Now, what we're going to actually do with that is we're going to find our z value. Okay, and what we need to do is we need to take x bar sub 1 minus x bar sub 2. And by the way, those are the averages or the means of the two samples. Okay, now we're going to subtract the average of the population, right? Because x bar is the mean of the sample, mu is the mean of the population. And of course, we have our sigma of x bar 1 minus x bar 2. Now, nice part is that this is not going to be as complicated as it looks. All right, x bar 1. And let me double check my formula here. I think I have it written on my note sheet incorrect. Nope, I do. All right, let's move forward. Ooh. Sorry, sometimes the pen just doesn't respond on the computer just like it does on the Promethean board in school. All right, so x bar sub 1 is $4,446.25. We're going to subtract 4567.24. Now, the averages or the means of the population. Well, remember H sub 0 said that these two guys were equal. So if they're equal, whenever we subtract two numbers that are the same, we should get 0. That's why I said this would be a lot less complicated than it looks at the moment. And of course, we plug in 108.5983. And the value we end up getting is approximately equal to negative 1.11. Of course, we go in and plug that in over here. That's going to be equal to, or that's going to, sorry about that, everyone. Had a emergency with the 2-year-old, so I had to hop off for a second. I apologize. Let's go ahead and finish this guy off. So obviously, our value is negative 1.1, which is right about here. Obviously, this is a fail to reject. All right, so if we were writing out a sentence about our findings, we should say there is not enough evidence at the 5% level of significance to support the group's claim. Okay? Good luck on your assignment, and I'm going to be signing off right now.